And I also want to call it, you see that top 8 from Baltimore for Sceptileice. Ilqm was actually top 3 at that tournament, and I believe is the one who actually knocked Sceptileice to the losers bracket. So this is actually a rematch from 3 months ago.
And a little echo from what you said earlier with, most improved trainer, right? Dr. Roastbeef certainly in that category. I think Sceptileice, we're seeing that same trajectory right here as well, with him consistently improving from the 2024 to the early stages of 2025 to now the middle stages of 2025. It's been very impressive. But Soph, we are getting locked in here. Sceptileice versus Ilqm. This is winners finals, top 3. Let's get into the matches.
And just as a reminder, this is a best of 5, and this is exactly what Ilqm wants. He's got Annihilate into the Shadow Drapion.
Okay, well, this is on paper a good matchup for this Annihilate. It is going to get outpaced to moves, and this is one of the nice things about this Drapion is just how quickly that it paces to these crunch. You can just chip and dip and force your opponent into an awkward situation. But Ilqm actually wanting to use the Protect Shield right away.
Yeah, recognizing that Annihilate is going to be one of his more offensively oriented Pokemon, and actually he's throwing pretty late here, letting himself take another crunch. All of a sudden, he's already down 2 shields in the lead, but he has a lot of energy. Let's see where he goes with this.
Well, if you go straight crunch, you can actually farm down. Yeah, Sceptileice recognizes that, but now there are 2 Rage Fists loaded. The nice thing about this for Ilqm too is these are going to be super effective Rage Fists. The first one you probably no shield, but the second one, oh, look how much damage that already does. The next Rage Fist is already loaded. It's going to be a race to the third one as well.
I think if you're Ilqm, you throw this, you pull the shield, and then maybe you come into a Zoom roll to absorb all the energy. Remember, Ilqm has already used 2 Protect Shields. But don't forget, Sceptileice hasn't shown a Shadow Feraligatr in the back. That looks incredibly potent against Ilqm's remaining Pokemon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're going to have to rely on that Annihilate to try and get something off, but your your Alolan Sandslash is not going to have a positive matchup there. Azumarill will have no problem tanking these charge attacks. You're going to be, and I think actually if Sceptileice can reach that close combat, that may be the more effective move. He tries to get there and he does.
This is going to do quite a bit of damage. It is resisted and Azumarill is very tanky, but Ilqm is going to come out of this with a lot of energy, potentially going to have something to throw at the Shadow Feraligatr if it comes in.
Okay, this Shadow Drapion is not in bubble down range, but keep in mind all the energy that Ilqm has on his, oh, and a catch! What a little what a peekaboo play that we just saw there by Sceptileice. Throws one Shadow Claw, brings in the Drapion, full undercharge from Ilqm. He wants to get a bubble down. This may translate to another charge attack, and he loaded for Sceptileice. Wants to get to this crunch. Oh, and we have a catch of his own. Ilqm brings in the Annihilate to catch this crunch. He'll be able to get one more counter off here, but needs to get through that Feraligatr.
Oh, and the crunch actually knocks out.
KOs.
Yeah, so that means Sceptileice doesn't get any Shadow Claws on the Feraligatr, and now Ilqm gets a little bit of a powder snow down, but this is still scary. Look at how much health is on this Feraligatr. Pretty much untouched at this point and still has a shield. Remember, this is the regular Alolan Sandslash, though, not the Shadow, so might be able to hang on through a Hydro Cannon.
I don't know about this play from Ilqm. He goes for the bait here. This is resisted Ice Punch. It does put Sceptileice in range now where one charge attack, either a Drool Run or a Play Rough, will knock out. 2 Hydro Cannons loaded now for Sceptileice. I think that the the Alolan Sandslash may be able to hang on for the first Hydro Cannon, but it is still a couple fast attacks away. No, Drool Run is ready to go. It forces Sceptileice to throw the second Hydro Cannon.
Ilqm does have energy on the Azumarill, but doesn't Sceptileice still have a shield? I don't think there's any universe in which Azumarill is able to get to 2 charge attacks. Look at this, the Shadow Claws are chunking away, and Sceptileice is going to take this very first game.
Yeah, so if you made a great call out in the middle matchup, once it was a 1 shield advantage for Sceptileice in the Feraligatr, it just looks so strong. Not only did it look strong into a relatively low HP Azumarill, but it does well into the Annihilate, and it has a dominant matchup into the Powder Snow variant of Alolan Sandslash as well. So we've seen how strong Feraligatr can be, and we've talked about some trainers that have just had incredible success leveraging it even into matchups that look a little awkward on paper. I don't know what that hard answer for Ilqm is going to be for that Shadow Feraligatr if he's not going to be bringing the Superior.
Yeah, it's pretty awkward, and I remember in the match that Sceptileice played against Valarash, we saw the Shadow Feraligatr doing so much work. I remember one-shotting the Talonflame, taking out other Pokemon as well, and I think it's no surprise that we see Sceptileice continuing to rely on that offensive pressure from the Shadow Feraligatr.
Well, so if we have to call out, as a reminder for everyone at home, this Winners Finals is a best-of-5 series. This is Ilqm's first loss, however. He was 4-0 prior to this. Still, he needs to now win 3 out of these next 4 games if he wants to advance to the Grand Finals. Meanwhile, Sceptileice is just 2 victories away from moving to the Grand Finals himself.
All right, well, this is going to be a tight matchup. A lot on the line here. Remember, if you enter the grand finals on the winner's side, you just need to win one best of 5 to become the regional champion. On the other hand, if one of these trainers drops to the loser's finals, defeats Dr. Roastbeef to return to the grand finals, then they actually have to win 2 best of 5. So if you're in this stage, you definitely want to be advancing on the winner's side if possible.
Okay, I would not be shocked to see more for Alligator from Sceptileice. It just seems so strong, especially if you can get a shield advantage for it to have it sweep. In some situations, though, we've just seen Sceptileice willing to 2-shield his Feraligatr instead and force the alignment that he wants to set up a Pokemon like a Diggersby or a Jumpluff that can have very one-sided matchups.
All right, well, if you're Ilqm and you feel like you have to bring the superior, what else do you bring? I feel like he's really loving that Drapion Azumarill core. It's been so trusty for him throughout not just this tournament, but tournaments past. So we'll have to see how he chooses to deal with the Feraligatr.
Okay, so game number 2, Ilqm needs to figure out a way to come back here. Otherwise, he's going to be down 2-0 and 1 game away from falling down to the losers finals. Sceptileice brings the Shadow Drapion. It's met by the Shadow Drapion from Ilqm. They're going to be pacing at the exact same rate here. We're going to see who maybe wins charge attack priority depending on when these trainers throw. A lot of them like to throw at 7. We've seen Ilqm do that a couple times now. He launches off the first Aqua Tail.
Well, it does take 9 Poison Stings, not just 8, and 2 Aqua Tails to knock out an opposing Drapion. And I'm not sure if these trainers even know who wins charge attack priority. Aqua Tail coming through, and I don't know, if you don't want to risk it, we've seen some trainers do a simultaneous swap into other Pokemon to avoid the charge attack priority here.
Okay, no, we see Sceptileice go immediately for the Aqua Tail. Ilqm just simply goes for the Poison Sting. He's going to be the first to use a Protect Shield, wants to continue banking up energy on this Drapion. This is very common for Ilqm. He loves energy on Drapion and maybe even swapping out later on. He actually, waits one turn, throws the Aqua Tail, wants to win this matchup here and exit the matchup with energy as well.
We saw how potent that Shadow Feraligatr was in Game 1 for Sceptileice, and Ilqm potentially realizing that the Drapion is going to be his main damage source. And all of a sudden, if you're Sceptileice, it's kind of awkward. What do you come in here with, right? Now you're taking super effective Poison Stings, and Ilqm farming up a lot of energy. I think he wants to bank it just in case something else comes in.
Well, there's nothing that's going to be providing any real fast attack pressure into this Drapion. It's either resisted Shadow Claws from the Shadow Feraligatr or non-staff Fairy Winds from this Jumpluff. Okay, Sceptileice does throw this Aerial Ace, though Ilqm does not want to keep this Shadow Drapion around any longer. Probably going to be bringing in the Corsola. Yep, here comes the Galarian Corsola. This is an absolute unit here. These Astonishes are adding up quick despite the bulk of Jumpluff.
All right, this Energy Ball is coming through. I think if you're Ilqm, you don't shield this. I don't know if he's expecting the Shadow Feraligatr in the back, but if that's the case, he's going to need to maybe reach 3 Nightshades against it to do serious damage, farming up just a little bit more energy, throwing just before the next Energy Ball is available, maybe realizing that Sceptileice would commit to that instead of just an Aerial Ace.
You got to find a way to crack shields here, and none of your Pokemon are very fast at pacing, right? You're going to have 5 and then 4 for your Nightshades, I believe, for Astonish. Meanwhile, you're going to be having Azumarill, which needs 6 bubbles to get to the playoffs. Yes, these Astonishes are adding up, but there's no reality where you're going to be able to farm down with fast attacks knowing that you're going to have to rely on Azumarill bubbles.
All right, well, Ilqm does switch into the Azumarill, so the story here is going to be whether this Azumarill can reach 2 play roughs before it's taken out by all of these Shadow Claws and a Hydro Cannon. The Corsola does still have some health in the back, but I think the Feraligatr can just outpace it no matter what happens. So it's really going to be up to this Azumarill to close things out for Ilqm.
Well, what Ilqm could do is get the shield right here with the play rough, and then maybe try and just go for the Nightshade with his Galarian Corsola, still with the shield remaining. He does get the shield. Sceptileice is now shields down. Lots of energy on his Shadow Feraligatr. He just reached 2 Hydro Cannons. 2 Hydro Cannons are not enough to knock out this Azumarill, however, and Switch Clock is quickly coming up again for Ilqm.
All right, first Hydro Cannon coming through. The second is already available, as you said, and I think Sceptileice is probably going to do 4 Shadow Claws and throw, just fires it right here. I think this might be enough to take out the Azumarill. I think if you're Ilqm, you can't afford to shield.
Sceptileice is 1 Shadow Claw away from the next Hydro Cannon. It will take anything out. The Azumarill does fall. This is going to bring back in the Galarian Corsola. Energy dry. Sceptileice trying to get to 2 Hydro Cannons. Ilqm able to get the Astonish through. Needs to shield up this Hydro Cannon. It's going to be a race. Will Sceptileice's Feraligatr get to this last Hydro Cannon, or will Ilqm get to the Nightshade? Ilqm 1 Astonished away, and he gets there!
Oh my goodness, a margin of 1 turn, so close at the end there. Ilqm maybe thinking the Azumarill was what he needed, but no, in fact, the Corsola was able to reach this Nightshade. Ilqm is going to tie up the series now 1-1.
Need to take a breath after that one. So these are close games that we're seeing here in these loser side, or sorry, in the loser side of the bracket with Dr. Roastbeef. Now back to the winner's side of the bracket with Sceptileice and Ilqm. We were talking about Galarian Corsola and how it doesn't have that many targets, but we saw this strength of Astonish not only versus the Jumpluff, but versus Feraligatr as well. Put it in perfect range where a Night Slash would knock out. Or sorry, a Nightshade would knock out.
I feel like this Feraligatr is still causing so many problems for Ilqm. Yes, It did get taken out by the Corsola there, but it was just incredibly annoying. I think Ilqm, you know, is thinking that his Shadow Drapion is going to be a great way to deal damage against the Shadow Feraligatr, but it's just not that reliable.
We're seeing so many teams bringing double water. Yes, Sceptileice only has the singular water, but he also has another target for that Superior in the Diggersby. I'm a little surprised that we haven't seen any Superior at all from Ilqm this entire tournament, considering how popular water and Diggersby combo have been.
I completely agree. I think we did see some games where someone had a Superior lined up against an Azumarill Diggersby, and it was pretty much game over, but I think Ilqm is just a little bit afraid to bring the Superior, knowing how safe the Shadow Drapion is for the opposing trainers.
And what makes something like a Feraligatr and Diggersby a little more threatening than, say, something like a Shadow Quagsire is access to Ice Beam and Fire Punch. So there are ways to hit back versus that Superior. Yes, you do tank one charge attack, but realistically, both of those Pokemon have some win conditions in certain shielding scenarios, especially if you're willing to go down one shield versus Superior.
You talked about Annihilate being one of the key Pokemon for Ilqm, and actually that's another pathway to victory for taking out the Shadow Feraligatr, right? You can two shields and counter your way through Shadow Feraligatr, I believe. I think you might have to boost with a Rage Fist, but that could also be something Ilqm is thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, those are the questions you have to be thinking as Ilqm is, okay, if I bring that Annihilate and I see that Shadow Feraligatr, yes, those Shadow Claws are going to be devastating, but what's my formula? Am I planning on playing out the 2-shield? Do I need to boost or do I just simply go for counters? If you remember versus that Shadow Drapion that he lined up versus a little bit earlier, he just went for fast attack pressure, just counter, 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 knowing that if he's going to shield 2 crunches, he can farm it all the way down.
That's right, but it didn't actually end up working all that well because I think he ended up not really getting the most use out of his energy. Yes, he got it into the Annihilate, but it still ended up being pretty awkward because he didn't have a way to deal with the Feraligatr in the back without the shields. But looks like we're getting into this Game 3. Remember, this is not a decisive Game 3. It's actually a winner's finals. And how many times have we seen this matchup, Jim? It's Shadow Drapion for Sceptileice into Ilqm's Azumarill.
I think we're at a baker's dozen here. My count is 13 times that we've seen this matchup throughout 2 days of tournament action here. Sceptileice will throw the crunch on 7 Poison Stings into the Azumarill just before it's able to reach the Ice Beam. Ilqm, no shields this one. This is the formula. We've seen this blueprint before.
But there's no crunch debuff, which is great for Ilqm. But actually, now this is a great play by Sceptileice. Catches this resisted play rough onto Clodsire.
I'm a little shocked by this play. This is, you know, a little bit of a sloppy play from Ilqm compared to what we're accustomed to seeing. This Clodsire now being brought out. Okay, Galarian Corsola is going to look pretty good here, and with that little bit of chip damage, maybe a little bit easier, but still, these Earthquakes do a lot of damage into the Galarian Corsola.
And if you're Ilqm, you have to be trying to get as much of an advantage as you can out of this matchup. You definitely need energy and health to deal with the Shadow Drapion and Shadow Feraligatr in the back, 2 very offensively oriented Pokemon.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know exactly how much energy that Drapion has, but that energy has better destinations than the Azumarill, so it wouldn't shock me if Sceptileice is able to get some good value out of that. All right, the next Earthquake is loaded. We have never seen Ilqm shield up his Corsola that I'm aware of here. Could this be the time? No, opts to let this Earthquake go, just using it as a damage sponge. One of the few Pokemon that can neutrally tank 2 Earthquakes, no problem, and we'll now get to this next Nightshade. Plenty to KO, but this may even set up a farm down for the Shadow Feraligatr before Ilqm's able to reach a charge attack.
I think he's realizing that and maybe wants to undercharge and get out, but he doesn't get the undercharge, but he does get out. Now we have Shadow Feraligatr against Annihilate. This is the matchup we were just talking about, but you are actually behind 1 fast attack as Ilqm.
Yeah, there's several concerns here. Number 1, you get outpaced versus the Shadow Feraligatr itself. Number 2, there's energy still on that Drapion as well. You need to rely on this counter as your main source of fast attack damage, but soon you're going to be down shields once this Feraligatr reaches the second Hydro Cannon. Maybe there's an opportunity where Ilqm will have to catch a Shadow Drapion attack later on once the Switch Clock is back up, but right now Sceptileice has the Hydro Cannon ready to go.
All right, these counters are chunking away, but like you said, there's energy on the Shadow Drapion. If it has a charge attack, then Ilqm might need to anticipate here. Oh, but his clock isn't even up, and Sceptileice able to come in with the Aqua Tail.
Yeah, this is going to be tough for Ilqm here because I think this Aqua Tail is going to be enough to knock out. Had he gone for the crunch, I think we may have seen a charge attack priority, but Sceptileice does take out the Annihilate from Ilqm. Now there is just an Azumarill and a low HP Corsola. Ilqm may need to pull off some heroics via a catch, but keep in mind, Sceptileice cannot throw... He can only throw resisted attacks into this Azumarill.
Resisted attacks, but look at these super effective Poison Stings adding up. I think this is Sceptileice's game to lose. Look at how low this Azumarill is. There is no universe in which it gets to multiple charge attacks, Ice Beam coming through, but Sceptileice still has the shield.
I'd say this is a game of inches, but it's really more of a game of centimeters here in Canada. Now that said, realistically, when we're looking at what went wrong earlier in the matchup, I think it was that play rough getting thrown into the Clodsire. I know this game isn't over just yet, but things are looking good for Sceptileice when it's that close. Like I said, centimeters, millimeters, we can call it. One miscue for Ilqm can absolutely be a domino effect later on and translate to this game victory for Sceptile Ice.
That's right. If he had thrown an Ice Beam on Cloudsire, that's such a better use of energy. Maybe could have come out of that matchup if he had gone into the Galarian Corsola still, right? He could have come out with a lot more energy, a lot more health. But I do want to give credit to Sceptile Ice. Not only did he make that catch earlier in the game, but he also had great recognition of the switch clocks being misaligned. He made that combo play with the Drapion into the Annihilate, realizing that Ilqm couldn't even catch or anticipate that if he wanted to.
One of the things that we just don't talk about enough, but it was so impactful, is the switch from a 60-second to a 50-second switch clock, and the trainers that have adapted to that and know how to manipulate that to their favor, we're seeing have a lot of success here. Yeah, Sceptile Ice able to get a lot of work out of that Drapion. It took out the Corsola, it took out the Annihilate, and then it was the key in getting damage into that Azumarill as well.
That's right, and I think this Shadow Feraligatr, Shadow Drapion core, yes, it is glassy, but you just deal so much damage, and Sceptile Ice is putting on a clinic with these two Pokemon. If you're Ilqm, do you finally bring the superior? Your back's against the wall here, you're down 1-2. If you lose this match, you're going to the loser's side of the bracket.
Ilqm seems to have an affinity for this Galarian Corsola. We've seen him bring it in earlier matchups. On paper, Soph and I were saying, it maybe doesn't have the most positive matchups. It has been able to avoid the Diggersby, though, and the challenge, though, is Shadow Feraligatr, Shadow Drapion. We're expecting those from Sceptile Ice. What is your response as Ilqm? I think the best response is probably that Annihilate, but it can only do so much, especially when it is getting outpaced so significantly.
You know, the weird thing is, if you try to counter Shadow Feraligatr and Shadow Drapion, in my mind, one of the really safe things is the Azumarill, but it just doesn't have a great matchup, especially when shields are up against either of those two Pokemon. All right, Wholesome, here it is. It's Annihilate versus Shadow Drapion, a repeat of game 1.
All right, this is what you want in the lead for Ilqm. You want to have your Annihilate placed versus, oh my gosh, and actually, Sceptile Ice's team is almost triple weak to Annihilate. There is play for Annihilate pretty much everywhere. Sceptile Ice immediately going for the crunch, though. We did see Ilqm in game number 1 shielding both of these. Will he take a different strategy this time? No, still puts up the Protect Shield.
Maybe worried that it's an Aqua Tail bait, and oh, there actually is a defense fall, though, so now the next charge attack is going to do quite a bit of damage. Ilqm throwing a Rage Fist just before Sceptile Ice is able to reach a crunch, but Sceptile Ice does actually call this. I think he has the crunch loaded.
He does have a crunch loaded, and Ilqm does not have another charge attack, so he immediately throws this crunch. I expect Ilqm to shield this one up here. He is single stage attack boosted and will be able to reach the next charge attack before any other Pokemon comes in and reaches their own charge attack. Would not shock me if Sceptile Ice just accepts defeat in that lead matchup now, brings in the Feraligatr to start hitting for super effective damage. These Shadow Claws add up so quickly.
Especially because I think Ilqm just got 2 defense falls on the Annihilate, but I don't even know if you can reach a second Rage Fist from here. I think if that Shadow Claw goes through, the next Shadow Claw is going to come very close to knocking out. And also you see the adjustment from Sceptile Ice. There's actually Diggersby in the back now, but Ilqm, at least he's bringing the Galarian Corsola into the Feraligatr.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, this is such a tough spot. This Shadow Feraligatr just looks so imposing. Super effective Shadow Claws into the Annihilate. Super effective Shadow Claws and very efficient Hydro Cannons into this Galarian Corsola. And then a dominating matchup as well into that Alolan Sandslash in the back. Ilqm, I don't even know if he's going to hang on versus this Hydro Cannon from the Shadow Feraligatr.
It's looking fantastic for Sceptile Ice. You have the Diggersby, you have the super effective Fire Punches, and you even reach this Hydro Cannon. I think all you have to do at this point is just land one more charge attack with the Diggersby. You have a shield. I think Sceptile Ice is going to go to the Grand Finals.
Yeah, this Shadow Feraligatr has been the MVP in this series for sure for Sceptile Ice. Between the Shadow Feraligatr and the Shadow Drapion, just no answer for Ilqm. He's doing everything that he can, but continually Sceptile Ice making all the right plays here, and this double super effective Fire Punch will solidify Sceptile Ice 3-1 victory here in the Winners Finals. He's going to the Grand Championship.
What an incredible run for Sceptile Ice. Ilqm, on the other hand, will drop to the loser's side of the bracket. He's going to have to face off against Dr. Roast Beef in a best-of-5.